All right, so in this video, we are going to be going over some more common methods that are used with arrays. Now, it's important to say that none of these are actually probably going to be used just on their own, but usually they're used with other things, like to do other things in programs. All right, but if you haven't watched my first video on this, you probably should. But otherwise, here we go. We are going to add a few other things. So the next thing we're going to add is a method here that's going to be able to find a value in the array. And by finding it, what we're going to do is we're going to tell you where it's actually located. All right. So just add the menu choice. Choice is equal to 5. Then find. Okay, now here's the thing. In order to find it, you actually need to be able to say what you want to find. So this method here is going to be a little bit different. This call here is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have to first say something like int target is equal to 0, actually is equal to input dot next int. All right, so we're going to take a target there. All right, and we'll put a prompt here, say something like, what number would you like to look for? Okay, so what number you like to look for, then we're going to take in the target, and then we're going to take this find, and we're going to say find the target in the numbers array. All right, and we'll actually say int location is equal to it, because what find is going to do is it's going to tell us, it's going to return back and tell us where that's going to be located. And then we'll just say system.println, um, say something like item is in index location. There we go. So now we got to write that method. So we're going to say public static. Now typically we were saying void, but in this case we're actually going to return we're going to return an index, which is an integer. Find int target int in our array. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to return the first instance of that number. So we're going to grab our trusty for loop, which we've been using so far. The for loop that we're using is going to allow us to traverse the array. And all we're going to do is just ask a question and say if, and oops, there we go. Okay, so if numbers at x is equal to the target, then we just return x. That's it. Right? And because this is actually only one line, we don't have to actually return it. We don't need any scope brackets there. So we're just going to traverse the array looking for the number. If the numbers at x happens to be the target that we're looking for, then we're going to return that x. Now we're getting a red line here because we're not always returning something. What it's saying here, and I'll hover it, is that it must return a result of type int. It's the reason why Java doesn't like this is because it's saying that what if this if statement didn't ever come true, then you wouldn't return anything. And that's actually true because what if the number's not actually in the list? So what we're going to do is over here, we're going to say return -1. Now, -1 return actually makes sense for an item that's not in the list because it's impossible for an array element to be in position -1. So that would actually make sense to be in a decent error code. Now, a lot of people also ask why this is not in an else statement. And the reason why it's not in an else statement is because what we're going to do, what would happen is if we did put it there, is if we would look in the first number, if it was the target, then it would get returned. But if it wasn't the target, we'd return a -1, indicating that it's not in the list. But that's not what we want. Instead, what we want to do is we want to try and traverse the whole list. And if we never find it, like if this for loop finishes without ever returning anything, that means that the number's not in the list, right? And then we can just return -1. All right, so let's take a look and see if we can find a value in the array. Right, so please enter a choice. We will say, let's populate, I don't know, sequentially, and then we will display the array. All right, and let's look for a number in the array. So find a value 5, and I don't know, let's look for 18. That should be in spot 17, right? And there we go. Let's try and find another value, and we'll look for negative 90. Okay, and that's in negative 1, which means it's not in the list. Okay, and we'll check for 102, also in spot negative 1. All right, so that's actually looking pretty good. Now, there is a little bit of stuff I can clean up here, right? So what we can do is we can say int target here, int location is equal to this. Instead of saying int location and then just printing the location here, what we can do is actually just call the method inside, right, like that. Okay, and that'll just clear up one line of writing of code that we don't actually need. All right, now let's move on to the next thing. The next thing, let's see, is we can check to see if the list is in ascending order. All right, so we're going to go small print line, number 6, check if the list is in ascending order. Now, this could actually work for descending as well. I'm not going to write the descending one because it's basically the same as the ascending, right? And I don't want to waste either of our time here. So else if choice is equal to 6, all right, we're going to say, now again, we want feedback here. So we're going to say system.println ascending, and we'll say check ascending. We'll call the method. And actually, this method will return a Boolean. So we'll either say, what we'll do is we'll say if check ascending numbers. Okay, if it is ascending, then we'll say ascending. All right, and then otherwise, we'll say not ascending. Ooh, look at that. All right, there we go. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to actually have to return a Boolean with this. So let's go do it. Public static Boolean check ascending int array numbers. Okay, now how do you know if a list is ascending? Well, you know a list is in ascending order if each number is larger than the one prior to it. All right, so we are going to actually just grab our trusty for loop here. Okay, the same for loop as before. And then what we're going to, except what we're going to do is we are actually going to start at x is equal to 1, right? So we're not going to start on the first one, and you'll see why in a minute. We're going to start in the second one. Well, actually, the reason why is because we're always going to compare it with the one previous to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if numbers at x is less than numbers at x minus 1, right? So think about what that means. Okay, so if numbers at x is less than the numbers at x minus 1, okay, so that means that the current number is smaller than the number before it, right? If that's ever the case, it means it's not ascending, and we can return false. So if we get through this whole array and we never return false, then we can return true, meaning it is in ascending order. Right, and I'm going to include that if it's all the same number, that's still considered to be ascending. All right, so let's take a look, see if this works. So we're going to go populate the array. Let's try sequentially and then display it just to show. Okay, check if it's ascending, and it is ascending. Then what we can do is shuffle this array. So shuffle, show you it is shuffled, and then check if it is ascending again. And in this case, it is not ascending. I can repopulate it sequentially, check if it's ascending, and it is. Populate randomly, it's probably not ascending if it's random. Okay, not ascending. All right, and there we go. All right, so let's add another item here. And let's just do one for fun here. Let's try and shuffle it back into order. Shuffle the list back into order. All right, so okay, we're going to try to do this. Now, shuffling the list back into order is actually almost impossible. It is technically possible, but probabilistically it's actually quite difficult to do that because there is 100 factorial different orientations of this 100 item array. And that means that it's just extremely unlikely for us to ever be able to shuffle this back into order. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to basically try and put a limit on this. All right, so we're just going to call this shuffle sort numbers. And this is just for fun because you would never actually use this, but it is actually going to demonstrate an interesting thing here. So we're going to say public static void shuffle sort int array numbers. Okay, so shuffle sort, yep. Okay, well, how do we do this? Well, what we're going to do is we could say while, okay, and now we do technically just need to see if it's ascending. Okay, so we're going to say while check ascending is equal to true, or is equal to false, so meaning it is not in ascending order, then we shuffle numbers. All right, and that's basically it. And the reason why I like this one is just for fun, like I said, but the reason why I like it is because it's actually calling other methods. It shows that you can call other methods within a method. Okay, so here we already have a method that checks to see if the item is, if the list is ascending, and then we also have one that does the shuffling for us. So we can actually just combine these into something else. Now this is actually going to probably go into an infinite loop. Like it will eventually find the solution, but probably I will die before it, like I'll die of old age before it actually finds the solution or shuffles it back into order. So I'm not going to run it like this. Instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to put a limit on it. Okay, so I'm going to say counter is equal to 10,000. Okay, so I'm going to just basically say that you're only allowed to try this 10,000 times. Okay, and counter is greater than 0. Okay, so we're going to make put a limit on this here. Okay, and counter minus minus, so we take away one of the counters, an item off counter every time, and then we can, at the end, we can just say something like if check ascending is equal to true, check ascending numbers is equal to true, then we can print out success. Now I don't expect ever to see that. Okay, else system.println failed. All right. So most likely this is going to fail all the time. If it ever shows success, I'll be extremely skeptical. Okay, so let's just take a look, and then I'm going to clean that up just a little bit. So we're going to populate the list sequentially. Now, if I shuffle sort it right now, it will be success, right? And that's because it checks to see if it's ascending, and if it's already ascending, it won't shuffle it, right? But if I shuffle the array, okay, and now I try and shuffle it back into order, now it's going to fail. And I can keep trying it, and it's not going to work, right? Now, what I could do is I could actually, there's a good chance that it will shuffle back into order if the list is smaller. So let's change the array size into 10, and so we'll populate sequentially, display it, shuffle, display. Okay, So now I've got my array in a random order. Okay, shuffled order. Shuffle it back into order. Failed, failed, failed. Now there's 10 factorial different orientations of this. Let's see if we can ever get it to be successful. Okay, and oh, there we go. Yay, it actually worked. All right, and yeah, there we go. It's back into order. Okay, let's go to our random list. Okay, so display. Okay, and we will just try and shuffle this back into order. Like I said, it's actually got like 10 factorial different orders, even with the size 10. Okay, so it's actually extremely unlikely that this will ever shuffle back into order, right? But with size 10, actually, it will happen occasionally, right? It's just you got to wait and see if it's ever going to happen. And we're only trying 10,000. I think we just got super lucky last time, but yeah, it does. It does work. Okay. Now, the only other thing I would like to change here is right here where we say check ascending is equal to false, right? A better way to write this is just to say what's not check ascending. And same thing here, if check ascending here is just check ascending. And the reason why this works is just because it's saying if check ascend, if this is going to be either true or false. So we're going to say if true is equal to true. Well, if this is true, and you say is true true, then yeah, then it's true, right? And if it's false, right, then false is equal to false, and that's true. Like so, you might as well just say not false, right? And in this case, you might as well just say true. If you don't like it this way, that's okay. A lot of people don't really like the look of this, but I personally I like this better. All right, and that's it for this video. It's just a quick one for finding values in an array, checking to see if the list is in order, and then shuffling back into order. In the next video, we're going to go over even a few more other common things that people do when they're using arrays, including like finding the highest or lowest value in the array, counting the number of occurrences of things, and then other things like that. Right? So there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.